You're listening to The Power Project. I'm your host, Brandy Voth, and it's my goal each week to inspire you to live purpose-filled lives and own your God-given power. One way to make certain that you are walking in purpose is to do only the things in life that fuel, fund, or make an impact. Now, what does that mean? So fuel is going to be what fuels me. That's going to be what keeps me going, what energizes my spirit. So family, friends, church. How do I renew my soul emotionally, spiritually? So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about a subject that absolutely fuels me. It renews my heart, it renews my spirit, and I come back feeling like a better person. So we are going to dive into the subject of travel, and specifically travel with kids. So let's jump right in, shall we? Okay, you guys, I am fresh off of a 3,000-mile road trip with my family, and I did a lot of thinking on this trip because we love travel in this household, and we love it in every form and fashion. We love road trips, we love plane trips, domestic travel, international travel. We love campgrounds, we love forests, we love being parked in the middle of a pasture for a dirt bike race. We just love travel, and some of our best family memories are made while we are out traveling. Now, before you get all like, I don't know if I can do this, just know we're going to walk through this. I'm going to walk you through travel with kids and teach you that it doesn't have to be a scary thing, and it also doesn't have to break the bank. You can save up and put money aside for your travel fund, and you should, because you guys, I think it is so crucial. And you can tailor your trip to whatever it looks like for you and your family. If you're tent campers, you can do it on a super low budget. And even if you are going to hotels or Airbnbs, you can really travel with your family on a budget. Now, that's not what this episode is about. It is about traveling with kids, the how-tos, the ins, the outs, some of our favorite places, and just some tips because we've been traveling with kids for quite some time at this point. So I thought that I would share what I've picked up with you guys along the way. So for starters, my husband and I'll never forget, we were on our first trip we had ever taken without our kids. And the kids were 5 and 2. We were so excited. It was our first break as parents. We were in this amazing resort in Belize, and it was an amazing time for about the first 48 hours. And then by day 3 or 4, we were both so homesick and ready to get home to see our babies. Now, in Belize, it's really difficult to get cell service because of the way that their telecommunication system is set up. So in order to call home, you would have to go somewhere to find Wi-Fi, and then the Wi-Fi would be patchy, and you would have a really hard time making the connection. And I'll never forget standing outside of a super noisy bar on my BlackBerry, trying to call home to talk to my 5 and 2-year-old, missing phone calls, and once I finally got someone to answer, I couldn't even hear most of what they had said. And you guys, at this point, I had already been lying poolside watching other people play with their children in the pool. And my ovaries ached to get home to my babies. So at this point, we both made a pact that life was short. The kids would be out of the house at one point, and that is when we would travel without our children. But up until then, we would spend our vacations and our time creating memories with our kids in these amazing places. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that a mom-dad trip is well-deserved and well-needed. But for the most part, we do our traveling and our adventures with our children. We have just recently started making it a priority once a year to go somewhere without our kids. And now our kids are bigger now. They're 13 and 10. So it's kind of, they're more self-sufficient. It's easier to leave them at home, but my gosh, you guys, I would be lying if I didn't tell you that it only takes a couple of days before we both are completely homesick and want to get home to our kids. So today I wanted to just tell you some of our tips and tricks that we've learned to be able to travel with kids. We've done all sorts of traveling with kids. Now, one of the reasons that I personally believe aside from financial reasons, I think that people tend to not want to fly with children because the entire concept of flying becomes overwhelming. And while we don't do a great deal of flying anymore, I have learned how to fly with kids because we have been flying with our children since they were about 9 months old. So I want to pass some tips along to you because I know that it can be one of the most exhausting processes of all kind. I'll never forget flying with my kids without my husband for the first time ever when they were 17 months old and 3.5 years old. And my 17-month-old was a live wire, you guys. And I had not purchased the seat next to me because I didn't want to pay for it. And I thought he could just sit in my lap. That was a big mistake. He spent the entire trip shaking the headrest in front of us, that poor man. He spent the trip flipping upside down in my lap. I had bruises all over my body. He did not sleep for the entirety of the 4-hour flight. And I vowed to never fly with my children in my lap and not in a car seat ever again. So if you can spring for the extra money, for the extra seat, stick a car seat in it, strap the kid in, and let him watch a movie because, oh my goodness, that was kind of awful. But some things to know when you're flying. For starters, the earlier that you can get your kids on an airplane, the better flyers they're going to be in the long run. It's just that simple because they become accustomed to it. The same thing goes for the sooner you can get them on a boat and in a life jacket, the more comfortable they're going to be on a boat and a life jacket. So my kids they were on boats at the age of 2 months old and 5 weeks old. They each had life jackets on at that age. So they never fought life jackets because it was just a way of life that they went on the boat, they wore a life jacket. When you get your kids out traveling, whether it's by train, plane, automobile, boat, the earlier you get them accustomed to these things, the easier it's going to be in the long run. So when you are flying, there's a few things to know, and you can actually download the guide that I have that is how to fly with your kids, a mom's guide to flying with kids. You can go over to the-powerproject.com/flying with kids. I'll link that in the show notes, but that's a good handbook to have that you can check things off for when you're getting ready for your upcoming flights because summer is here, school is out. I know that everyone's trying to cram in their last minute vacation. So I just thought this might be a good time to let you have that download that is free from me to you. And here are a few tips that I go over, some in that, and then some are just added extra here. For starters, takeoff and landing is incredibly hard on kids. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally have allergies and my nose gets stopped up and that gives me added pressure. And the takeoff and the landing, sometimes I can't get my ears clear. Now, kids don't know how to clear their ears and babies certainly do not know how to. I'll never forget being 14 years old, flying to Washington, D.C. for a conference. And there was a baby just crying incessantly on the plane as we were landing. And I kept saying, oh my gosh, could someone please make that kid quit crying and screaming? And finally, the girl next to me said, well, don't you think it's his ears hurting him? And this was all the while I was in the process of clearing my ears. And needless to say, I felt like a complete jerk. But having children of my own, I now know to look for ways to ease that pain for them. So if you're flying with an infant, one of the easiest ways to do this is either nurse or give them a bottle on takeoff and landing. If you can do that, that keeps them with the swallowing motion and it keeps them opening and closing their mouth, which helps their ears to clear. And then if you have a toddler, you can bring chewy snacks like fruit chews, gummies, things like that they can snack on. Now, I've learned from my past travel history, don't give them the gummies too early because then they'll eat them all before you actually take off. And of course, if you have bigger kids, get them their own pack of gum. They get really excited about it. Throw them some mint gum in their pocket, and then they can chew that on takeoff and landing to keep their ears clear. Another pro tip on that, if your kids have allergies, the more clear you can keep their nose, the better it's going to be for their ears. So I always like to give them a little bit of Zyrtec before we took off so that they could keep everything clear. Now, another thing that I wrestled with when flying with young kiddos and even big kiddos today is traveling through the airport. I don't know why, but airports have got to be the most stressful place on the planet. There is just something about shuffling around with a lot of people when you're in a hurry and getting through security checkpoints and getting to a gate on time that is so stressful on my soul. But then if you throw in traveling with a baby and young children through that, it can be even harder. So the easiest way to get an infant through the airport is by putting them in an infant wrap or sling on your body. I've seen so many mamas do this, and it is so much easier than trying to put them in a stroller. Now, speaking of a stroller, if you are going to travel with a stroller, then the umbrella stroller is the best, easiest way to get through security, and it can be checked at the jet bridge. And while I understand sometimes your baby's too small for an umbrella stroller, this is the easiest. Trust me, I had an instance where I took a double stroller through security. It was a nightmare. We had to basically disassemble the stroller to try to send it through the scanner because the stroller that you take has to go through the scanner. So from then on, I always traveled with an umbrella stroller. And if you're wearing your baby on you, security will let you wear your baby through the scan. Like, that's not a problem. Another thing about traveling with babies through the airport to keep in mind is that you can bring your diaper bag. You can have baby food, breast milk, formula, whatever it is that you need for that baby for the duration of the flight. They will let you have it. However, TSA will just have to do like a test and test the liquids to make sure that they're safe and they're okay. You can also bring extra oversized objects that you need while traveling with your baby, and they don't count as extra luggage. So if you need to take a pack and play or a crib or anything that relates to your baby, it's okay, and they will allow you to do that. Then when you have a toddler and you're trying to get through the airport, they have these amazing things that they did not have when my kids were little, and they're rideable luggage. They're the cutest little things. They come in different like animal sizes. You can get them at Amazon or Walmart, but they're like different sizes and different animals. And the kiddos can ride on them like a scoot toy. They're on wheels, or there's a strap where you can just pull it behind you. It's an amazing invention. And one of the ways that I traveled with my kiddos, whether they were little or big, we started this around the age of 3 and 6, and we would give them a backpack and pack that backpack with all the activities that they wanted for the trip. I would let them pick, and as long as it was nothing that would roll around or was messy or sloppy, they could take their little Ziploc baggies of different activities on the plane. And so we would pack them in their backpack, and then attached to that backpack, we would have a rolled up blanket tucked inside, one of their favorite little small blankets, and then their pillow pets, which is what we used for pillows back then when they were younger. We could Velcro them to the backpack. So they had all on their back, like their toys they wanted to play with, their books they wanted to read, their sticker books, whatever it was. And then they had their pillow pets and their blankets, and they had a small suitcase on wheels that they wheeled behind them. And they felt like the biggest kids because they were 3 and 6 years old carrying their own luggage through the airport. And back then, their suitcases were small enough that we could just throw them in the carry-on department. So it worked perfect. Plus, it saved us money on not having to check their baggage. So those are the easiest ways that I've found. Now, at this point, you guys, I'm going to tell you, if you're the mom of littles, life gets easier and your kids get cooler. Seriously, at this point, when they're 13 and 10 and we travel, the last summer we traveled, just myself and the boys, I didn't have to pick up a single piece of luggage the entire trip. They totally took care of me and carried my luggage and wheeled me. So all that work you're doing right now with those little ones is going to pay off in the future when they're older. So then there's also activities that I think you can stay away from and avoid. For starters, if you're going to do an activity book, I mentioned sticker books. The reason sticker books tended to work better for us is because I learned the hard way that if you take color books, the crayons roll all over the tray tops and they into the floor, and then you've lost them forever. Also, don't take toy cars. Those I found were not a great idea. But those little like sticky hands and sticky animals, those are great because they can just play with those and they don't really slide away. Also, an iPad with the kids' apps loaded up on it, charged up. Make sure that you download the airline's app, install it before you take off. Because if you get in the air and you don't have Wi-Fi and you don't have the airline app installed, you're not going to be able to watch the free entertainment that they play throughout the flight. And speaking of your kids watching things on the iPad, kids' headphones are an asset. Like you have to have those with you because those little earbuds hurt their ears. And my kiddos, like I said, from the age of 3, little bitty guys, they would just have their headphones and they would watch their movie and they would be so excited. So headphones, not earbuds. And then I think there's like just a few little common sense things that we should think of while we're talking about flying with kids. For starters, I want you to remember that you are not the first person to fly with children, nor will you be the last. And even if you get sat next to that grumpy man that did not want to be sat next to children, just talk to him, make friends with him, apologize in advance if your children annoy him, and you might even offer to buy him a beverage or a dessert, something to keep him happier along the flight. So the next thing is that if you can just teach your kids the value of looking up at the flight attendant when she comes by and asks for drinks, if you can just teach your kids to have manners with the flight attendant and not be so absorbed in their electronics or their book or their movie, this goes such a long way. I cannot tell you how many flights I've been on that they have offered us my kids free cookies, extra snacks. They've given me a glass of wine because it looked like I needed one at that point. But we have gotten so many on the house freebies just because my kids have been polite and said, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, please, and thank you. That goes a long, long way, you guys. Now that we've talked about plane travel, let's talk about where to stay when you're on vacation. All right, you guys, I am a VRBO junkie. We literally do not go anywhere that we don't book a VRBO. And there's really quite a few reasons for that. So especially when you're traveling with kids, because my husband and I just really are not resort people. We kind of feel trapped like rats when we're on a resort. We like to get out and explore, and we like to off-road, and we like to see sights, and we like to do things that locals do. And most importantly, we like to cook. We love food. We love cooking. We love food. And so we like to get a condo from VRBO so that we can have a kitchen and a microwave and an oven and a refrigerator. Plus, this saves you so much money. Not only is a VRBO condo going to be cheaper than a room at a resort, but you're also going to save so much money by cooking in house instead of going to the resort to eat or going out to dinner to eat. And then you can pack lunches for going out during the day and exploring. You can have lunch in your car with you. So VRBO, I am not endorsed by them or Airbnb, but I highly recommend that route. And when you're booking something on Airbnb or VRBO, look for the condo rentals because you're going to typically find a place that has a swimming pool and a grill and outdoor facilities and maybe access to private beaches. So, and you're going to be able to rent this cheaper through Airbnb or VRBO than you will be able to contact a rental property management place, because typically there's a property management fee attached to that, and you can save some money by just going to VRBO. Now, if you do choose to stay in a hotel, there are a few things that I wanted to point out. First off, do your research on what hotels have kids stay free. I know there's several of them. Some hotels will give you a free adjoining room for your children. Just do your research on that. I personally really enjoy staying at Embassy Suites. They're a good, clean, solid brand. Once again, not endorsed by them. And you can get the double room suite to where that you have the little mini kitchenette in the middle. The kids have their room on one side and you have your room on the other, because after all, you guys, it is vacation. And at the end of the day, you're going to want to snuggle with your husband, and your kids can be in a different room where they're not keeping you up. Also, you can ask for a mini fridge in your room if it doesn't automatically come with one, especially if you're traveling with small children. Now, typically it's like a $25 a day fee, But if you or your children are on medication or your child requires any special formula or you're traveling with breast milk, you can have a mini fridge placed in your room for free on the house. So keep that in mind. Also, they have rollaway cribs in most hotels. So you don't have to take your pack and play or your crib with you. They will bring a rollaway crib into your room, set it up for you, totally on the house and no extra charge. Same goes for microwaves. If you're on a special diet, say you're gluten-free or your children are on a special diet, you can typically have a microwave brought up to your room with no extra charge also. Otherwise, it's about a $25 a day charge, I think. In places I've stayed in the past, that's what it has been. So if you are, here are a few tips to throw out there, and then I'm going to jump into some of our favorite places we've gone with our kids and how we do road trips, because we did a lot of traveling in the past, but road trips are our new favorite thing that we do. So if you are traveling internationally, you guys, with children especially, there are just a few things I want to point to. And don't get scared to travel internationally with your kids. I think it's so important for your kids to be exposed to different cultures and different people, different cuisines, different places. I absolutely love my kids meeting kids their age from different countries that have a completely different lifestyle. So don't get scared of it, embrace it, but just know there's a few things that you should keep in mind. Keep everyone's passports together in a zipper bag inside of your personal carry-on or your purse, something that's going to be on you the whole time. Keep them in one place. Every time you show them, put them back in that one place. But also make copies of passports and place them in a separate carry-on, such as something that your husband is carrying, so that, God forbid, something happened to your passports, you can take that copy and help expedite the process of getting your passports tracked down. Now, another thing is that custom lines are long, you guys. When you come back into the United States, it takes forever to get through, especially if you're coming in through Miami. Miami is like the longest customs line in the history of all time. But there's a few things you can keep in mind. First off, keep the snacks flowing with the kids. Make sure you've saved enough snacks because they're going to be hungry. Someone's going to need to use the restroom. They're going to be thirsty. And just keep them as happy as can be, because there's a lot of people trying to get through these lines back into the U.S. Make your declarations quick, short, sweet, to the point to speed the process up. And a lot of times, if you're polite, your kids are polite, and you're not really throwing a fit, in my experience, an attendee will come help you find a lesser packed line so that you and your little kids can get through. Now, when your kids start getting bigger, they don't necessarily go out of their way. But when they're little kids, they'll give you a little hand there. The third thing I want you to know about traveling internationally is that while you are experiencing different cultures, there are some cultural differences that go along with that you need to be prepared for, and you need to know how to handle it with your kids. It's something that we experienced, and we didn't even think about it before we started traveling with them internationally. So in other cultures, when you go to the beach, women don't wear tops. So we had that experience with our kids a few different times, and we just had to explain from a very early age that, hey, this is a different culture. It's not shameful, what they're doing in their culture. So we're just going to turn our head and continue on about what we're doing on the beach and divert the attention. So I also never made a big deal out of it. I'm like, look, guys, it's a couple of pockets of fat. It's fine. Turn your head and let's keep playing. So that's just something from this mama heart to yours to let you be prepared for when you start traveling internationally to beach locations. Okay, so on road trips, you guys, this is my new favorite. If you follow along any of my Instagram or Facebook, you'll see that my little mama heart is happiest when I am in the motorhome, taking adventures and making memories with my kids. I love it so, so much. I love meeting new people along the way. And while we're on these road trips, we don't just drive from destination to destination. We like to teach kids things along the way. We like to have them see the country that they are a part of. We like them to learn that what they're reading in a book about history and geography is right in front of them and they can explore it. It's literally in their backyard. And it took us having friends from Australia that had come to visit that pointed out the fact that they had been to more states in the United States than we had been to. We had been traveling to Hawaii and the Bahamas and internationally, and we had done states in the U.S. with the kids, but we hadn't really explored the entire continental U.S. And so that is our new journey, and we plan to see all 50 states by the time our oldest graduates high school. So we have 5 more years, but last year we did mark off about 15 states during the summer, and this year we added another 6 to that list, I believe. So we cover a lot of miles and we do it in a very quick time span. But along the way, we like to point out what has happened. Like, oh, this is where we're at. This is what you read about in your history book. And this is, for instance, last year we were up in Wyoming and Montana, and we were on our way to South Dakota, and we crossed the Bighorn River. The Little Bighorn River, and we saw a sign that said, it pointed to the Battle of Little Bighorn. So I wanted to tell my kids all about it because they hadn't learned about it in history. And obviously I don't know the entire Little Bighorn battle in my brain, but a quick Google search pulled that up and I was able to tell the kids all about it. And the coolest part of all is that it was the day in history that we were there that the battle had happened. And we had no idea. We didn't even plan it. So I am always on the phone, Googling and researching things that we can point out and tell the kids. And when we go over lakes and rivers and significant historical places, we can tell them what happened in time at this place. We can tell them about the cities we're going through. For instance, this summer we went to Charleston. And Charleston, South Carolina has been on my list for quite some time. I love the history, the culture, the food. It's incredible. And so while we were there, we visited the Magnolia Plantation and we did the Slavery to Freedom tour. If you want a full review of what I thought about Charleston, South Carolina and the tour and the plantation, you can go over to my travel blog on the-powerproject.com and you can read all about that. It's going to be the most recent entry. It's the Charleston entry. So on this Slavery to Freedom tour, my kids were able to tour the slaves' quarters and see the evolution of when they went from being slaves to being sharecroppers, and then eventually to one man that stayed on this plantation his entire life. He was the grandson of a slave, and he was the gardener of this plantation for 70 years. And so we got to hear his life story of how he had 18 children and 9 of them were military and 9 of them were college graduates. And so they get to see history come to life when we do these things, and they get to learn about the lessons in history. And we're not just spending these trips at water parks, which is great if that is what you enjoy, but we're teaching history along the way. They're learning geography along the way. They're literally seeing our country's history come to life, which is really important to us because I believe that so much learning takes place outside of the classroom and you need to be a student of life. For instance, when we were in Hawaii and we went to Oahu, we were able to take the kids to Pearl Harbor. They were able to learn all about Pearl Harbor and the USS Arizona, and they toured the entire base. And so they learned about World War II there. And that continues as we travel. They learn more pieces of that. While we were in Charleston, we were able to tour some battleships and they got to learn about that. So we just really take the time wherever we're traveling on these road trips to make sure that they learn a historical lesson while we're there. And then the second thing we do, while we don't do a lot of eating out while we are gone. We pack our motorhome, we fill it up with food. But if we're in a place that is known for their cuisine, since we are a family of foodies, we go find the oldest restaurant in the city that is known for their specialty, and we go dine there and we have the experience together. So that's one of our fun things. But speaking of eating and packing and groceries, there is a way to eat healthy along the way. Even if you're taking a road trip in a car and not a motorhome, you can still take healthy snacks along the way to where that you don't have to eat junk food the entire time. I don't know what it is about a road trip, but it makes my entire family want to eat junk. So one of the tips that I do, I like to take cold vegetables and slice them up and keep them in containers in a cooler. My kids love cucumbers. They love cherry tomatoes. We snack on that. Pickles are really good as well. And so are almonds, cashews, apples, things like that they can snack on that satisfy that busyness that we need to do while we're traveling. They work great. Now, when we fill up the motorhome with food, and you can do this in a car also, in your cooler, just because you're camping or you're staying in a condo, whether you're in a tent, a motorhome, or a condo, the easiest way to eat a good meal that is not just a frozen pizza or a can of raviolis or something that is going to make you regret your vacation, the easiest way to stay on the same type of diet that you're on at home is to get meats and vegetables that are frozen and prepared to cook. So for instance, we love bacon wrapped pork tenderloins. We love bacon wrapped jalapenos. I mean, come on, you guys. Put bacon on anything and it's delicious. But we here in Texas have this place called Buc-ee's, and they have this amazing meat counter. Shout out to Buc-ee's. They have a frozen meat section, and we can go in there and I can load up on sausage and boudin and pork tenderloin and shrimp and get all of my meats that are frozen and they're ready to cook. They're marinated, and all I have to do is throw them on the grill when we get to wherever we're going. So we do that. We throw some Brussels sprouts on the side, some potatoes, something quick and easy, and we're not missing out on the quality meals that we have at home. So it doesn't have to be hard to be really good for you and good to eat. So now that we've got those steps out of the way, let's get down to some of the favorite places we've visited with our kids. So we love the Big Island in Maui, you guys. There is so much to do, so much to explore and do for free. If you've never been to Hawaii and you're going and you're taking kids, I highly recommend the Big Island. There's wild horses and off-roading, black beaches and green beaches. You can see the most beautiful stars that you've ever seen in your life. There's snorkeling. There's an active volcano. And there was something about the calming effect of standing at the edge of an active volcano with our kids that was almost a spiritual feeling. We all loved it, and we all talk about it today. It's really great. There is an amazing place to stay on the Big Island for a really cheap price. The Palm Villas at Mauna Lani. Get on VRBO, look them up. Great places to stay. 10-minute walk to an owner's beach, which has the best snorkeling on the entire island. And about a 2-minute walk to the Foodland grocery store where you can stock all your groceries. And then they have a hot food counter and a sushi counter. That is where we eat all of our meals when we're in Hawaii. We literally do not eat out one time while we're there. Now, the Abaco Islands, which are the northern outer islands of the Bahamas, are hands down one of my favorite vacations we've ever taken with the kiddos. The water is just amazing. It's calm. It's clear. You can stay at the Bahama Beach Club, which has one of National Geographic's top 10 most beautiful beaches. It's not crowded at all. They include the paddleboards and kayaks are included for your kids to play on. And you could spend your entire trip just in the pool there or on the beach or kayaking. And then also the restaurants there in the Abacos all have pools where kids can swim while you wait. Now, we rented a boat and did a lot of fishing because that's something that we enjoy doing. And that's something you can do on your own if you're an experienced boat operator or fisherman. I highly recommend it. You can island hop and check out all the islands of the Abacos that way. So then if you're looking for some places in the States, then we did Yellowstone last summer. And something that you should know about Yellowstone that I didn't realize, it's massive. Like, it's so much larger than I ever expected it to be. It takes 3 full days to get through Yellowstone. For some reason, I had this vision of like Yogi Bear and dirt paths and golf carts. Like, I did not realize that this is a massive, massive place with highways that run through it. So there's an upper loop and a lower loop. And we did the lower loop last time because we had a limited time to be there. That is the loop that is the most crowded with the most tourists, but that's the loop that has the geysers and Old Faithful. So if you're going to Yellowstone for the first time, you have to see Old Faithful. The upper loop has all of the wildlife. Now, you can do the upper and the lower as long as you plan accordingly. You get there very early and you spend the full day in the park. Once again, you can pack your lunches and your snacks, and you can just eat while you're exploring the park. Don't forget to take your binoculars because you're going to see wildlife far beyond as far as the eye can see, and that way you can make out what you're looking at. Take your patience while you're getting into the park. It takes a very long time to enter, and count the license plates from all the different states. We literally saw license plates from almost every single one of the 50 states when we were entering the park. Now, a place that is super underrated, is, in my opinion, is Spearfish, South Dakota and the Black Hills. No one ever told me how beautiful this area is. We stayed at this amazing campground called Elkhorn Ridge. And you guys, we've stayed at a variety of campgrounds, from KOAs to luxury campgrounds. And if you're looking for a place to stay on a budget, you can typically find a campground that has cabins for rent that are going to be cheaper than a VRBO or a hotel. So the Elkhorn Ridge campground is absolutely incredible. It's wide open. It's beautiful. They have these country club style basketball courts and tennis courts. There's room for the kids to ride bikes and roam. It's 5 minutes from Sturgis. It's 40 minutes from Mount Rushmore. And you can hop in your Jeep and go explore the Black Hills. You can do the backcountry of the Black Hills, and you can go fishing and dirt bike riding or hiking or mountain biking. Highly, highly recommend at some point you spend some time in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Now, speaking of luxury RV parks, Orange Beach, Alabama has one of my favorite parks. This is just across the highway from the beach and a short drive down to the public beach where you can take the kids to play for the day and check out this really cool place called The Hangout. Now, it backs up to the Gulf State Park where you can ride bikes and you can go hiking. It has a lazy river and a swimming pool that you can cool off in because that Alabama heat in the middle of summer is super humid for anyone that's ever experienced it. But we love that area. There's some great fishing out of Orange Beach. And like I mentioned, we really enjoy fishing. One of the places that caught me totally off guard as to how much I love it is the Maverick Ranch at Big Bend State Park and National Park. So my husband mentioned we should go down to Big Bend. I was very skeptical because it was nothing I had ever had on my bucket list. But you guys, if you have not been to Big Bend National Park, at the very southern corner of Texas, I highly recommend it. It is not just beautiful for Texas, it's beautiful for anywhere in the United States. Our kids actually had so much fun there last spring break. They've requested that we go every spring break and chose it over snow skiing that they've done their whole life. So it's just a vast, wild, unruly part of the world. There's more stars than you literally have ever seen anywhere in your lifetime. It looks like you're staring at a planetarium when you look at the dark sky down there with all of the white twinkling stars. You're right there on the Rio Grande. You can see all of the Chisos Mountains of Mexico. My kids threw rocks across the Rio Grande into Mexico last year and thought that was the coolest thing ever. But the Maverick Ranch there is a really, really great RV park, super kid-friendly. You can ride bicycles all over, and it backs up to the state park. It's about half an hour from the national park entrance, but I 100% encourage you to go explore the national park, get a Jeep, do some off-roading. You can go raft on the river, paddleboard on the river. You can play golf at Lajitas. Big Bend has won my heart as one of my favorite destinations to travel to with kids. So you guys, I encourage you, if you haven't taken a trip this year with your kiddos, go find a destination, go find a spot you've wanted to go to, make a way to go do it. You don't have to break the bank. You don't have to spend a ton of money on a trip. Just go make memories with your kids, go explore, and go enjoy family time. I hope that you enjoyed this edition and you picked up some tips and tricks and you're inspired to go out and travel with your family. As always, if you like what you heard in this episode today, do us a favor, go write a review, give us a rating, share this episode with all of your friends on all forms of social media. And you guys, that is what gives us the energy to keep going and putting out more episodes each week for you. I can't wait to chat with you next week. But until then, go out and live your best purpose-filled lives.